Pure imagination is how we change the world. When there's something new coming, it starts with that spark within, that imagination, that intention that we set. Something that we see within our mind, within our heart, is what then manifests, right? It's what we believe that manifests. So it starts inside rather than out there. It's not all about just manipulating the world. And that's one of the things that is so powerful to me about Science of Mind. This month we've been exploring creativity as a part of living everyday wonder. And we began with an individual's choice to heed that inner creative impulse as we listen and respond to that inner divine voice that seeks to express itself through us. That is how God expresses itself in the world. Now, in the next Sunday, Palm Sunday, we learn to dance with the donkey of our resistance, right? And gather the courage to step out of our comfort zone. And then we became, last week on Easter Sunday, willing to let that spiritual transformation process free us from the safe and limiting boundaries that we have set for ourselves. And we let Spirit roll back that stone from that tomb. Those limiting beliefs and fears, we have locked ourselves in there. And so when we let go and let God, something different can come forth. Now this week, we are ready to share, exploring creativity and share our gifts with the world, our talents and our passions. And as we learn to let go and let God guide us and express itself through us, we begin to enjoy living life to its fullest, right? And let that divine creativity and joy and love just come out into the world, right? It just flows from the inside out, but we have to let go, right? And it's then that we're ready to boldly go where no man or woman has gone before. So, in the reading that we had from, there's a reading from Ernest Holmes in the Science of Mind textbook, and he says, we must consciously know that we can use creative power. The more we complete such acceptance on our part, the more completely we shall be able to use this power for definite purposes. So it's like if you have a computer and you don't know how to turn it on, it's going to sit there just being a piece of hardware. But if you turn it on and if you plug it in, you'll be connected to the whole internet. So it's an amazingly powerful instrument. We have to plug it in, turn it on, and connect, right? So it's the same thing for us. Now, in the reading from the Science of Mind textbook that Nancy shared with us this morning, it was based on Ernest Holmes' interpretation of a passage in the Bible. And in Matthew 9:17, it says, "Neither do men pour new wine into old wineskins. If they do, the skins will burst. The wine will run out and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins, and they are both preserved." Right? So Jesus was teaching that we are always developing spiritually. And we are always expressing more and more of that infinite invisible that is manifesting itself in us, through us, and as us. And so we have to let go of the past and move into the future. So in Ernest Holmes' interpretation of this passage, he said, accepting the lessons and experiences of the past, pick out what's good, pick the best from everything, we should press boldly forward, looking ever for the truth, and ever ascending higher and higher into the heavens of reality. In other words, Spirit wants to express more and more of that divine wholeness and truth and light and love in the world through us. There's no limit to the possibility inherent in all people. So let the timid soul put its complete trust in good and press bravely on. Right? So when we feel timid, when we start thinking that all this stuff out here has the power, that it's going to hold us back, instead we need to remember that it's that Spirit within, God, that is expressing, moving us forward. And that's where that faith and trust gives us the strength and courage to move forward. So, this, when I hear about this, press bravely on and go higher and higher into the heavens of reality, this sounds like motivational training for the crew of the Star Trek Enterprise, So at the beginning of each original Star Trek show, Captain Kirk, the commander of the USS Enterprise, declared his purpose: space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, and to boldly go where no man, woman, has gone before. You know, one highlight of my childhood was spending Friday nights with my family watching Star Trek, right? And so Gene Roddenberry, he was an experienced television scriptwriter and a longtime science fiction fan, and he brought the future world of space travel to life with his groundbreaking series. His vision was encapsulated in those words from Captain Kirk, spoken at the beginning of each episode. It only lasted for 3 years, but in syndication, I think we watched them over and over and over again until I almost had them memorized, I think. My dad was an aerospace engineer, so he identified with the ship's engineer, Scotty, and with James Kirk as the team leader who was going out and making new relationships with aliens around the universe, right? So most of the time, though, I followed Spock very closely. I admired his intelligence and his ability to mind meld with other people and share their thoughts. I thought that was so cool. But the most memorable character for me, though, was only on for one episode. It was called The Empath. It was a female empath who was silent, and she appeared on during the show was on the 3rd and final season. She could heal someone else's illnesses or injuries by taking on the injuries herself, right? So by doing so, she risked dying herself. The most difficult part was then once she took the injuries, healed them in the other person, then she had to heal herself. And this was a process of going within and surrendering, a spiritual transformation as she accessed that inner divine healer. And it wasn't always clear that she was going to make it, right? But for me, the seed was planted of becoming a healer and a practitioner and later a minister, right? So when I later discovered science of mind and the process of spiritual mind treatment, which is a powerful form of prayer, to access the healing and transformation through the power and presence of the divine, my heart resonated with a deep calling. Right? I was hooked. I was ready to boldly go where I had never been before. Right? So what is calling you to boldly go where you have never been before? What creative impulses bring joy and make time stand still? What are your divine gifts that you have to share with the world? Be of good courage and begin, right? So the next question to ask is, what brings us happiness and success, right? That's largely what we're all striving for. And Viktor Frankl, who was the Australian psychologist and also an Auschwitz concentration camp survivor, he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And in the preface he said, "Don't aim at success. The more you aim at it and make it a target, the more you are going to miss it. For success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must be ensured as the unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a course greater than oneself." Greater than oneself. And that's the important part of this, right? How does this jive with science of mind? Well, we say that when we set our attention, we pray expectantly for what we want, and then it manifests. That, we say our word, we speak our word, it manifests. Now, isn't that a conflict? But actually not. This is where we distinguish our small self, our ego self, from our higher self, or what we like to call our authentic self, that comes from oneness, right? Our authentic self is that divine potential waiting to be expressed. It's the self that is striving to serve the highest and best for all of life, not just for themselves alone. This is following the CSL vision of creating a world that works for everyone, right? Remember that we are all part of that one life that is God. There is no separation. There is no other. And when we love and serve one another, we are loving and serving ourselves, a part of ourselves. Another thing that we have heard many times is do what you love, right? And so let's explore that idea for a while. It's a very popular idea, doing what you love. And Confucius is actually the one that first put that goal out into words. He said, choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. So the idea has been around a long time. Love what you, but there's another way that we might want to word that. Instead of do what you love, how about love what you do? Now, we all want to pursue our dreams and our passions, and is this realistic? You know, there's a lot of people these days that keep changing jobs one after the other, looking for that perfect dream. You know, it's got to be a perfect job or I'm not staying here, right? Well, we also don't want to be in a job that's really keeps us limited and so forth. But is it all about getting the things that we want in life? You know, like that perfect job that pays us lots of money and recognition, or a nice house, a great car, perfect relationship, being able to travel wherever we want to go. I mean, that's, you know, perfection, right? We all want all of that. But what we find is that when we do get these things that our ego self wants, the joy soon wears off, right? Dissatisfied, we find ourselves wanting more or something different, right? It's just, but more, more, more. There's an emptiness that cannot be filled by getting more stuff in the material world. Lasting happiness comes instead from an inner spiritual shift. When we give a spiritual mind treatment, what we call affirmative prayer, we begin with the first two steps of treatment. Step one is to say that God is all there is. Everything in the universe is a part of that one life that is God. Nothing is separate. And God is infinite love, peace, wholeness, abundance, wisdom, joy, all of those divine qualities. Right? Now, step two is that we remember that we are each a part of that one life, a unique, individualized expression of the one. That is our true self. Just like a hologram is everything that's in the greater, the hologram is exactly a small version of it. So we are a small version of God, an individualized expression of the one. Our essence is that divine intention for who we are. All of the divine qualities of God are also our nature, right? And when we shift our consciousness to the level of oneness, to that Christ consciousness level, what we want is also the best for the whole of the one. As Christians might say, what would Jesus do? In the Centers for Spiritual Living, we would ask, what is the highest and best for all involved? Right? This makes all the difference. How many of you are familiar with the concept of flow? Right? So Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi published his groundbreaking book called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience in 1990. And he defines flow as the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience itself is so enjoyable that people will do it, even at great cost, for the sheer sake of doing it. We say that we are in the flow when we are so focused on doing something so enjoyable that time stands still. Our consciousness is elevated to that sense of oneness, one with the universe. We are just there, fully integrated with the universe. We all move as one in that flow. Now, some of the examples I'm sure you can identify with. One is the exhilarating feeling of skiing down a mountain. You know, your whole body is moving easily like you're one with those skis and the snow, the mountains, the trees and the skies. I mean, it's just all there together, that perfection of being fully alive, right? Csikszentmihalyi, I have to say his name better. He gives the example of a painter who feels when the colors on the canvas just begin interacting. You know, there's something more than what the paint on the canvas. It's creating a new form that seems to come to life right in front of him. It's a new life form, right? Or there's the feeling that a mother or a father has when the first time their baby responds to their smile, right? That there's really a spirit there. that they're interacting with. There's life, right? Maybe a swimmer crossing Lake Tahoe from one point to the next. There's a lot of effort that's involved with that. But there's also a rhythm. There's a part of being with, when you get into that flow, just being there, present. Maybe it could be an inventor building on their research to find a new solution to a medical or engineering breakthrough. They're very focused on what they're doing and all the little details that have to be done. I know Savannah, when she's working on hosting for Zoom, she's very focused on all the little pieces and having it come together. So hopefully it'll be in the level of flow soon. But it's a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile when we're in the Zoom, right? In the book on flow, he suggests that we can learn to control our consciousness and achieve flow with our intention, just as we do with spiritual mind treatment. And he applies this to all different parts of our life. It's a wonderful book, if you have a chance to read it. Now, there are two researchers for the O.C. Tanner Institute, which is part of Forbes magazine, David Sturt and Todd Nordstrom. In a 2015 article, they suggest that instead of doing what we love, we should love what we do. People learn to find meaning and satisfaction, as well as complete award-winning projects, when they do something that other people love. Now, this doesn't mean that we're trying to please other people for the benefit of pleasing them. It doesn't mean that we're just creating the next widget or the toy that's going to soon end up in a landfill. But what it does mean is that we're finding a way to serve our fellow human beings or serve the planet. Right? In Science of Mind, we would say that serving the one life that is all of us. Right? Now, we say that our purpose is love. We could also say that fulfilling that purpose is by living our values and fulfilling and allowing that love to manifest in the world through our actions, right? There's an example of the company Subaru of Indiana. A woman named Denise Kogan is their manager of safety and environmental compliance. This is Earth Day, of course, or yesterday. So, of course, we have to have something about taking care of the planet. And so when she started working at the plant in 1998, she had a goal of reducing the amount of waste that they send to the landfills. That's part of the ethic of Subaru. So you can imagine that a large automotive plant in Indiana, in the Rust Belt there, on 832 acres, generates a lot of waste products. So first, Denise began by implementing an on-site solvent recovery and reuse program. And by 2002, they had eliminated all the hazardous waste that was generated by the plant. It was being cleaned and reused in the plant. Next, Coogan began diving into the dumpsters to see what was in those dumpsters. What were they throwing away? It's not a glamorous job, but it served her values and Subaru's values, and so she did it with a little extra protection going on. But for each item, they've found a way to repurpose that trash into raw materials that someone else could use. Right? So all the scrap metal from the stamping shop is sent off to become smaller car parts somewhere else. The glass from the used light bulbs is turned into reflective road striping. The styrofoam and plastic packaging that comes with all of those parts that suppliers could send, they package it up and send it right back to the suppliers so they can reuse it immediately. Right? They even recycle their dust, and they compost the organics in the cafeteria. So today, the Subaru of Indiana, it throws away less than one trash bag a year. I'm sure many of us throw more than one trash bag away from our house each week. So that's an amazing accomplishment. And by 2004, they had become the first U.S. auto plant to receive zero landfill status. So that's quite an accomplishment. But she was living what she was called to do. That was her purpose. That's what she was called to do. And what Subaru, that's part of their ethic. And so it came together. And so they did it first. They learned and figured out how to do it. And now it's being copied all around the world. Right? In 2003, the National Wildlife Federation even designated their plant as what they called a backyard wildlife habitat because the complex water filtration system and the reduced water use ensured that the ponds and the wooded areas around the plant provide clean and safe habitat for American bald eagles, the great blue herons, coyotes, deer, great horned owls, rabbits, beavers, muskrats, egrets, vultures, hawks, and more. So this is what they call the backyard wildlife habitat. So Denise Coogan and Subaru are loving what they do. Now, when we try something new, it's not perfect the first time by any way, shape, or form. We've learned this definitely with the AV system and Zooming and all those kinds of things. So many things had to change during COVID. But we begin with that vision. We listen to Spirit within and say, what are we calling? What are the possibilities? And so we listen to that guidance. We listen in our hearts. And then we're ready to present our talents, our gifts, and our passions to the world. In the book, The Science of Successful Living, Raymond Charles Barker says, "The full symphony of your real self can only be heard when all the windows of your mind are open to the fullness of life." So it allows us to open up. It allows us to be something more than just our little small self, but we are this radiant being that's expressing the divine and all of its glory when we let go. That real full symphony of our real self. If we want to be victorious, however, we must also be willing to be vulnerable. And that's pretty hard. That's scary, right? When we try something new, we are, by definition, a newbie, right? We have to drop the armor of knowing it all. We have to open our hearts and let down our ego defenses. If we dare to live authentically and we want the rewards of a life well lived and serving the one. And this is how we move to living in the flow. We're not born masters at whatever will be our life's greatest contribution. Monet and Van Gogh, we love their art, but they started practicing as children, and they practiced and they practiced and they tried different techniques and they kept practicing, and their artwork evolved over their lifetimes. But we have those timeless masterpieces that we all admire now. One of our world greatest living composers, John Williams, he's still composing music at age 90. He was born in 1932, and he began as a pianist and brass player and practiced and practiced and practiced when he was in high school. He attended LA City College for one semester because they had a jazz band that he wanted to play with the band. But in 1951, he joined the U.S. Air Force and he played in their band. And after he left the Air Force, he used his GI Bill to go to Juilliard to become a concert pianist. He played in a jazz band on the side to support himself while he was going to school. However, once he heard Van Cliburn perform, he decided, maybe I don't have as much potential as a concert pianist as I had thought, and maybe I should change my major to composition. Well, aren't we fortunate that he decided to do that? Because we have all those wonderful compositions, including Star Trek, that he's composed and are beloved by so many people. And he's still doing a great job of it at age 90, right? They say that it takes 10,000 hours to become a master of anything, that you really want to know it well, inside out. But along the way, we have to be vulnerable, to be newbies, and also find maybe that we have to change our path from what we expected. We think, this is going to be it, and you get to that next spot, and it's not like what we expected. So we have to make a sharp turn or go up or down, or maybe new people come in or leave that we're collaborating with, right? It's always an evolving process. The goal is not to find the perfect solution. Instead, discovery is a gradual process with lots of detours and dead ends before we find the actual solution. Or maybe our first solution that seems to work, it'll be superseded by an even better one, hopefully. Eric Butterworth, in his book Discover the Power Within You, says, in the divinity of man, there is a changeless relationship with the principle in which every problem has an answer. That principle within has nothing to do but to work for your highest good. So the universe is conspiring for your good. Whatever you're trying to do, the whole rest of the universe is there to support you, assuming we're all rowing in the same direction in the boat, right? You can remember that the problem also and solution are just two sides of the same coin, right? So if you see a problem in front of you, you can flip that coin over and know that on the other side there is a solution. It might take some effort to find it, but it is there. That's the way the universe is designed. All of life is created in harmony. So every problem, every challenge has a solution when we let go and we let God be our guide. You know, these things take time. You know, I heard this week that CNN Plus is shutting down after less than a month of this great new adventure that they were going to try. They have a new owner. Discovery bought them out, and so they just said, no, we're not going to do that. It didn't work for us in the past, won't work for you. That's it. We're not going to spend the money. We'll never know if the vision was correct or not. You know, there's a lot of different companies that were started that it took them many years to become profitable. Amazon was unprofitable for 9 years. Jeff Bezos founded it in 94, selling books out of his garage. 2 years later, it went public, 1996, and they sold a lot of books, but they were not making a profit until 2003, 9 years later. Jeff Bezos is now the second most richest person in America, having just been surpassed by Elon Musk. Right? Now, Tesla also took a decade to become profitable. And in fact, it wasn't even started by Elon Musk. It was started in June 2003 by Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning. A year later, that's when Elon Musk came in and he invested in the company because it was in Silicon Valley, and he became the chairman and started making all of those movements that he did. In 2009, they even received a $465 million loan from the U.S. Department of Energy to keep them going. It wasn't until 2013, a decade after its launch, that Tesla had its first profitable quarter. Now, with all of these new startups, new things, we have to keep that vision, and we have to keep checking in to make sure that that is the divine intention, right, and that we're hearing it correctly. There's a wonderful poem by Rumi, who is a 13th century Sufi poet, and it really captures the essence of what happens here and why holding that vision is so important, even when we can't even see how it's going to work out. So this poem is called How. A man sits and eats damp clay for moisture. How is it with him when a flood of fresh, prophetic rainwater suddenly rolls him along? You know, going from drought to a flood, right? How is it when a blind, filthy dog wakes up and finds that he's a lion, and not a lion such as could be killed, but a spirit lion who shatters sword and javelin with just his presence? How would that feel? A man crawls for years on his stomach with his eyes closed, and then one moment he opens his eyes and he's in a garden. It's spring, but his eyes were closed, right? How is it to be free of how? Loose in howlessness. This suggestion: wash before going to the water tank. The waters there have grace enough to clean and give you peace, but wash yourself of howls before you go. Wash off all the wonderings why and all the workings out, however. Don't take those with you to the big water tank. He's written about the new moon, Hilal, which is the crescent moon, And now he'll write about the full moon, the sheikh, which is a gift from Allah. New moon and full moon are the same. A new moon teaches gradualness and deliberation and how one gives birth to oneself slowly. Patience with small details makes perfect a large work like the universe. What 9 months of attention does for an embryo, 40 early mornings will do for your gradually growing wholeness. You know, it's that time we spend within in meditation and listening to Spirit. You know, Spirit asks you to say yes. We all long to feel alive, awake, and energized and uplifted, right? We want to be happy. But to do this, we need to step out of our comfort zone and step into our authentic spirituality. We need to dare to listen to that spiritual truth of our lives so that we can begin to tell the creative truth of our life. So be bold. Dare to be and to show up as the creative expression that you already are. That's who you were created to be. Let the wonder of divine creativity begin. I'm going to try something a little different for our prayer this morning. As I go through a guided meditation, there'll be some questions. And so take the time to listen and just let the thoughts pour in. So as we go within, following the breath, being in the stillness, in the rhythm of life, of the breath in and out. And we know that God is all there is. And we are connected with God, with that wholeness of the universe. We are connected with each and every person here and in our spiritual community and out in the world. We are all one. We live and breathe and love as one. And so we allow that spirit, that still small voice in our heart of hearts, as we let go and we allow it to come to the surface. And at first it's a gentle nudge. And as we recognize it, appreciate it, welcome that divine urge, it comes higher into our consciousness, and we become aware of something that has always been there, ready and waiting for us to see it and welcome that divine urge of creativity. And so we let that divine peace and joy fill our being. We know that our purpose is love, and we give gratitude for all the good in our life. And so ask, what do you naturally do that you love and always think about doing? Maybe you love being outdoors. Maybe you can't get enough of reading, learning new things, watching airplanes fly, growing roses, singing, or cleaning tarnish from old collectibles. What do you love? Where do you lose yourself in an experience? What causes yourself to lose all track of time? Maybe it's playing with your grandchildren. Maybe it's fixing wobbly chair legs. Maybe it's going into a kitchen and creating something from nothing or from whatever's there. Where are you most at home in your skin? Where do you feel at one with the universe? Maybe it's making bread. Maybe it's polishing your car. Maybe it's skiing, hiking, fishing, knitting, writing poetry, or learning all about Tuscany, or even walking around Tuscany. Finally, what is the one thing that makes your heart sing more than anything else? It might be singing. It might be visiting art museums. Maybe it's social justice work, LGBTQ activism, feeding the homeless, or volunteering at an animal shelter. What is it that makes your heart sing? Let your answers emerge. Knowing what we love, who we are, what we care about, and what we are drawn to creates sacred self-awareness. And when we have that, we realize that living our purpose of love isn't about livelihood, career, or job skills. It is about the consciousness of love and oneness we bring to everything we do. In our work, in our play, in our family, and all of our relationships. It is how we are a blessing to the world. And I know also that the Center for Spiritual Living Tahoe-Truckee is a blessing to the world. I know that our calling asks us to rise higher, to make the world a better place, embracing all and serving with love while awakening to the one. We lift each other up. We love and support each other. We reach out into the world and share that love, infinite joy, infinite peace with the world. And we all rise together. For we are all part of the one. And so we listen. What is ours to do today as an individual and as a center? What are we called to do together as we grow and serve God's people, all people, each and every one a treasured being? We find that urge of divine creativity coming up within us. And so we know what it is we need to do, where we can share our gifts and our passions and our talents, where we can share the words and thoughts of science of mind and help lift the world to become more of God expressing itself, the infinite invisible, loving and supported all of life everywhere, of loving, supporting the planet and all of its creatures, that the environment is healthier and stronger because we are living here. I am so grateful to be a part of this, to have clarity in my thinking and understanding, to know what to do, to work together with these wonderful spiritual community, to work together to create that heaven on earth. And it is good. I am so grateful to see it, to be a part of it, to know that it is unfolding right here and right now without delay as we release these words into the law of God, the law of mind that says, yes, this is your belief, this is your intention, yes, it is manifesting now. This is how the world unfolds. This is how we all rise to a higher level together as the human species, as all of Earth and all of its species, living life in wonder, with creativity, and with deep abiding love and peace, in harmony, knowing that all is well. And so we let go and let God be the truth in our lives, the guide, the love, the peace that passes all understanding. And together we say, and so it is.